Good morning. Good morning. Earlier this morning in Caucus, the Democratic Caucus welcomed Tim Kennedy to our group. His swearing in was last night, and it was an honor and a joy to hear Representative Joe Morale introduce him, a longtime friend of Joe's. So we welcomed him and added him to the Homeland Security Committee promptly as a caucus. Last week, the United States added 150,000 new jobs, bringing the total created under the Biden-Harris administration to 15 million jobs created. Wages continue to outpace inflation, and unemployment has been below 4% for 27 consecutive months. This incredible economic progress has been made possible because of the work of House Democrats, putting people over politics, working with our Senate counterparts and the Biden-Harris administration. We have strengthened the economy in the face of constant Republican attacks and obstruction that would hurt workers and make life harder for everyday Americans. The Republican budget proposal, which is their vision for the country, cut Social Security and Medicare, raises energy and housing costs, and will undo the progress that Democrats have made to bring jobs back from overseas. Our vision for America's future is centered on strengthening and the economic opportunity and making life easier for working families. The choice could not be more clear on the agendas that we all stand for. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. I also want to welcome Tim Kennedy. He was a state senator in the Buffalo area. I have a special place in my heart for state senators. He was sworn in as a member of Congress, and he's going to be a fantastic member, and we all look forward to working with Congressman Kennedy. As Chairman Aguilar noted, we have had tremendous job creation. Democrats are putting people over politics, and we're focused on creating jobs, lowering costs, and defending reproductive freedoms. What are Republicans focused on? Well, if you look at the legislation they want to put on the House floor, they're focused on refrigerators and dishwashers and laundry. These are not serious attempts at legislation. And not only are these bills just totally stupid, they're actually harmful. Like, why do we want to disincentivize our terrific industry from not modernizing appliances? These are stupid, harmful bills. I urge Republicans to get serious with the legislation and work with Democrats on issues that will actually move the American people forward.
I don't know the state Senate secret handshake that Mr. Kennedy and Vice Chair Lieu know, but we will move on nonetheless. Questions? Ryan.
Mr. Aguilar, many of your fellow Democrats pushed for George Santos to resign or expel given his legal issues. You've not done the same for Congressman Cuellar after he was indicted this week. Why is there a different standard for him?
This is an incredibly serious issue. It's not lost on House Democrats how serious this is. Representative Cuellar has done the right thing in stepping down from his committees, stepping down from his positions as Chief Deputy Whip and ranking member of the Homeland Security Subcommittee. He's entitled to make his defense. He is entitled to the presumption of innocence. That we look forward to that process playing out. And just like every American, he's entitled to that presumption. I think that's the overwhelming feeling of House Democrats at this point.
Mr. Chairman, Israeli forces have begun a limited ground offensive in Rafah. If there is a full-scale invasion, I'm wondering what reaction we would see from Democrats and whether you anticipate the Biden administration to take some punitive actions such as withholding weapons transfers.
We'll see what happens on the ground, and we'll work with the Biden administration to see what their response is. The most important thing here, especially in this moment for that region, is the return of the hostages. Defeating Hamas, returning the hostages, and surging humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Those have been the same points that House Democrats, Leader Jeffries, President Biden have been talking about and focused on. That continues to be our focus and objective. We hold out hope for this process among the parties, working with other countries that could secure the hostages coming home. That is our focus, but we understand the importance of defeating Hamas. These are not mutually exclusive, and the importance of surging the humanitarian assistance that we voted for and support to that region. Those are the important things that that House Democrats continue to push forward.
Chairman, Speaker Johnson is meeting today at 12:30. Again, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, in an effort to apparently stave off any motion to vacate Democratic leadership. You guys have said that you would block something like that. Do you have any concern about where the direction of these talks could go after the direction that McCarthy's talks with folks who were thinking about ousting him last time?
Like it's just not lost on us that whoever the Republican leader is has to cater to the most extremes of their party. I can't speak to the promises that he will make, but we know the promises that Kevin McCarthy made, and those promises, including changing the rules package and allowing for a single member to force a motion to vacate, led to him being ousted by his own members. So I can't speak to it. I know he was just here at this podium, very animated in talking about some topics that had not been front of mind in the past, namely the president's investigations, the former president being investigated. So I'm sure that's part of the mix of what Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to see out of her speaker. But I can't talk about. We don't know. We aren't privy to those promises that he's making. But we are focused on working with Republicans where we can on an agenda that matters for everyday Americans. Just like the vice chair said, they want to look at what's on the agenda this week. Liberty for laundries, freedom for refrigerators. I mean, these are unserious issues that the Republican conference is putting forward. When they can't push censures and impeachments, they're going to push this silly stuff because that's just who they are. They don't want to lower the cost of everyday Americans. They don't want to work in a collaborative way to create jobs. They're worried about that, meaning that that President Biden scores political points or something. I mean, this is ridiculous, but it speaks more to who they are and what they care about than anything.
Marjorie Taylor Greene has believed in wild conspiracy theories. She is extreme. She's made extreme statements. She's also one of the leaders of the pro-Putin caucus of the Republican conference. So when Speaker Johnson meets with her for hours, the American people should be asking, what is Marjorie Taylor Greene extracting from the speaker?
Well, would something like this make it less likely that you guys might step in the event of an eventual motion to vacate, depending on the results of whatever these talks go?
It would depend on what Marjorie Taylor Greene is able to extract. And I can guarantee you, whatever it is, it's not likely going to move the American family forward.
We have said her effort will not be successful. That's what we've said. We want to turn the page. We want to put this behind us, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After the FAA bill, the Farm Bill is the next big piece of legislation that's got passed by the end of the year. The House Republicans put out their proposal, the Senate Democrats put out their proposal. I'm curious how the caucus is reconciling those two bills as leadership, kind of put forward a plan of how you all are going to kind of move forward as this bill kind of starts to get debated.
This continues to be a work in progress. Obviously, top of mind, as you mentioned, Michael's FAA. So once we put that, once we conclude that, we will shift our focus to the Farm Bill. Leader Jeffries has been engaged. The committees of jurisdiction have been engaged. This is an important issue for Americans and for the Democratic Caucus. We pride ourselves on having, thoughtful discussions that involve both commodities as well as nutrition components within the Farm Bill. Those are important to us and our members because they're important to the folks that we represent. And so we look forward to having those conversations. But there will be ongoing talks. There continue to be ongoing talks with our Senate counterparts. We want to get this done, and we know it has to be in a collaborative way, just like bills that have become law and signed by the president. It's going to have Democrats and Republicans on board, and we understand that, acknowledge that, and look forward to digging in a little bit more.
Given the calendar, are you confident that a farm bill will get passed by the end of the year?
We know the calendar is a challenge, especially, and I can't speak to these issues, but it's hard over there in the Senate. It takes them a couple days to turn the lights on or to do something. So we can't speak to that, but all we can do is continue to work and collaborate and work with them on the substance of the legislation, and then hope that there is both the time and the vehicle in order to make that happen. Max?
On the Cuellar indictment again, I know you mentioned he has the presumption of innocence, but just two follow-ups on that. Number one, have you read the entire indictment? And what do you make of the charges that he acted as a foreign agent for the Azerbaijani government as well as a foreign bank? And number two, have you spoken to Cuellar directly since the indictment?
I've read the indictment. It's just like I said. These are serious allegations. These are incredibly serious allegations, and the Democratic Caucus treats these with the utmost respect. He's entitled to that presumption of innocence as any American would. I have not talked with Representative Cuellar since the indictment came out. But that said, I will say Representative Cuellar has been for decades. He's been a legislator. He's been a statewide office holder in Texas. He has deep relationships with Republican colleagues, Democratic colleagues on both sides of the aisle. We know that he is, a serious, public official, public servant. And I think that's what sets this apart from other issues and the silliness of George Santos that we had in the past. And I think that's why many of us are treating this a little different. The substance of the allegations is very different, but the individuals are also night and day.
Thanks, Chairman. Some Democrats have been quite bullish on hopes to win back the majority in November. Does Cuellar's indictment put that at risk? And will the DCCC help Cuellar in his reelect if he needs to? Will they spend money in the race?
That sounds like a question for the DCCC. Neither the vice chair or I, especially from this podium, are going to get into a lot of electioneering. We will say that we, are focused on the issues that the American people care about. The voters in South Texas had an opportunity to elect a representative. They did. Even after some of these allegations were public, and they elected Representative Cuellar. We have worked with him, and he has obligations to his constituents, as all of us do. As far as what the DCCC's posture is going to be, it's a question directed to Susan Del Bene. But I can tell you, every single member of our caucus is laser focused on ensuring that Hakeem Jeffries becomes Speaker next year, because one of the first orders of business will be to certify a presidential election. And we know that Speaker Johnson specifically should not be trusted when it comes to that, is the chief legal architect of House Republicans' efforts to set that election aside. It's important that Hakeem Jeffries is sitting in the Speaker's chair. That is our political focus, and that's what we're going to continue to focus on in the future. In the back.
So there's been several comparisons to the Santos indictment with Representative Cuellar, but how do you think this squares with the Senator Menendez indictment, where we saw, a windfall of Democrats call for his resignation after the indictment? How do you kind of square those two?
Again, the substance of these allegations is very different. I think in that, and I made some comments on that indictment, and I hold true to those. I think that these are very different. There were some, pictures, and there were some things that were very different with respect to the allegations. So, look, he's entitled to the presumption of innocence, and I would say that these allegations from all three individuals are very different.
President
President Biden is going to make a speech today on anti-Semitism, condemning anti-Semitism. Curious what you want him to say, and if you want him to address the protests throughout the country at various campuses.
Well, it's important the day after Holocaust Remembrance Day that we, acknowledge 6 million Jews who died. I think that's and making sure that never happens again. And as a country, having conversations about that and leading to more inclusivity and more education. But we understand the challenges within the country too. Anti-Semitism is real, and the fact that Jewish students specifically don't feel safe on college campuses is something that is very difficult for all of us to hear and to feel. We know that this is a combination of. We know that there are many issues at play. One is freedom of speech and expression that should be and is protected on college campuses, but making sure that young people feel safe while they're in these learning environments, and that the universities carry out the own rules that they have is incredibly important. And so we know that that President Biden has been incredibly thoughtful on these issues. I would anticipate that he continues to talk about this in a way that is important for all of us as Americans to both honor and respect the history and the importance, and standing with the state of Israel to ensure that this never happens again. But as I have said before, specifically, to some of the issues at hand that are in front of us, the importance of releasing the hostages and the discussions that are happening, on the ground in the region are incredibly important. Surging humanitarian aid, those are things that House Democrats, have been focused on as well.
Sure. Prejudice and discrimination against anyone is wrong, including anti-Semitism. And I look forward to hearing President Biden's speech. No one should be discriminated against simply because they happen to be Jewish. Everyone in America has a right to free speech. They do not have the right to engage in violence and vandalism. That is not a difficult line. Violence is not protected by the First Amendment.
Last question.
House Republicans have floated ideas to pressure schools to crack down on these protests more, such as withholding funding. Where does the Democratic caucus stand on that?
Like I said, I think that colleges and universities have their own rules that they can enforce before anyone feels that we should be adding to laws and regulations and rules. So let's see what that looks like, and let's work with our local partners. Sometimes that's local police departments, sometimes that's university police. But like the vice chair said, there's no place for discrimination on college campuses. That's the overwhelming viewpoint of the caucus. Next question, go ahead.
In a statement this morning, Congresswoman Tlaib wrote about the Rafah invasion. Congresswoman Tlaib wrote, "Many of my colleagues are going to express concern and horror at the crimes against humanity that are about to unfold, even though they just voted to send Netanyahu billions more in weapons. Do not be misled. They gave their consent for these atrocities, and our country is actively participating in genocide." Both of you voted in favor of the Israel Supplemental Appropriations Bill. How do you respond to that?
I disagree with her statements, and I think with respect to Rafah, as we have said, the president has been very clear. He has let Prime Minister Netanyahu know his positions on this. Our feeling is that this also makes it more complicated to ensure that the hostages are released, and but we want to be focused on the importance of surging humanitarian assistance, releasing those hostages, and making sure that we defeat Hamas. Those are the goals and objectives, but that's not the language that I would use. And the vice chair and I and many of our colleagues on both sides of the aisle supported surging humanitarian assistance as well as resources so Israel can defend itself.
Thank you.